Alright guys, let's get started with learning and memorizing a set of chord changes. This is going to be for the song Song for My Father by Horace Silver. And we will begin by playing a functional bass line to help get our ears accustomed to how the chords are moving from one to the next. And also so that we can outline the chords in a way that is simple and repetitive, so that we can memorize them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the root and the fifth of each chord. For the first chord, the F7 chord or F minor 7 chord, that's F and C, and all the others are outlined in the chord scales at the bottom of the chord chart provided in the description box for whatever key instrument you need it for. That being said, we're going to play this functional bass line the way Horace Silver plays when the melody is being played. We're going to play on 1 and 3. We are going to have the pickup into 1 and the pickup into 3. So it's going to go and 1 and 3 and 1 and 3, and this is what that's going to sound like. Okay, and we're going to do that for each chord. So if you're still not sure exactly how this is going to go, give this a listen a couple times and then try playing along with it. I'm going to put my metronome on 100 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready. Oh yeah, warning, the chords go a little bit faster than the other chords toward the end of the song. We get half notes instead of whole notes or double whole notes, 2 measures. For those, obviously, we don't get to play as many notes. Just the roots of each chord is fine for those. That E flat 7 and D flat 7 in the last line of the piece. So once you've done this a couple times and you're sure that you have it memorized, you can do this without looking at it. Then you're ready for the next step, which is to arpeggiate the chords. We're going to play the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh, and we're just going to arpeggiate up once per measure, except for where we have the chords that go twice as fast. We have half notes. We're just going to go 1 3 5 7 and then 1 3 5 7 for the next chord. This is what it's going to sound like for one chord, the F minor chord. Okay, which right up the chord. You can do this in a different way if you'd like, but simple is probably best for the first time. Again, if you're not sure which 1, 3, 5, or 7 the notes are supposed to be, double check your chord scales, circle them, highlight them, whatever you have to do to make them stand out so that you can play them. And now I'm going to play through the form, arpeggiating the chords. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. course, I'm changing octaves where it's comfortable to do so. You can pick any octave. All octaves are created equal in Western music, which this is. That doesn't hold true for everywhere in the world, though, which is quite interesting. Someday, maybe we can play music like that here. That being said, let's move on to the next step. To improvise while playing just the chord tones. So we can change the order, we can change the rhythm. The goal is to play the chord tones and change chords when the chords are supposed to change. In this case, we have 2 measures of the first chord, then 2 measures of the next chord, then we have 1 measure and 1 measure and 2 measures, etc. If you're reading this, make sure that you are being strict with the time, as strict as you can. And if you're using a play-along track, then it's being strict with the time for you, so you have no choice, which is a good thing. Whatever speed you need to do this, if it has to be slower, that's probably, again, for the best if you've never done this before. But it'll stick a lot better if you do it slower. So here is using chord tones to improvise over the form of this song. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Can certainly be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, but in the beginning, of course, simple is good. If you can outline the whole chord, great. If you can't, stick to maybe 2 notes in each chord. We already did the root and the 5th for the functional bass line, so maybe the 5th and the 3rd, or the 5th and the 7th, or the root and the 3rd, something like that. And by no means do you always have to do it the same way every time. And you should do several choruses just like this, just doing the chord tones, arpeggiating, and improvising. Last step for today's video, which is now chord scales. We've increased the number of notes that we started with from 2 to 4, and now we have all 7 notes in the scale. Again, provided on the chord chart. The goal is to change chord scales when the chords are supposed to change. The first thing we're going to do this time, again, we're just going to play straight up each scale, 1 whole measure. I'm going to use 6 eighth notes and a quarter note. So we'll play up 7 notes and then restart on the root. For the chords that last 2 measures, I'm going to play 2 octaves, and then always start on the lowest octave for the next chord. This is chord scales. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Obviously, for those chords that move faster toward the end, we can't exactly play the whole chord scale. There's just not enough time for it. Although certainly we get to play those chords earlier in the form, and you should always practice your scales separate from the songs that you're practicing anyway, just on their own, so that you're comfortable with them. That being said, the next most logical thing to do would then be to improvise using these chord scales. Again, trying to change chords when they're supposed to. If you're using a backing track, it tells you when, and if you're not, you really have to count the beats. This is not my strong suit, but let's see what happens. These are chord scales, improvising, metronome. 1, 2, ready, go. I hope I was counting correctly. If not, we're only human. If you were able to follow along with this, great. Go apply it to your practicing. If you weren't, go back and listen again. This will not be the only one. And certainly when I can make longer videos, I will make more detailed videos, and we'll go slower through each repetition. And certainly we'll have to go slower for more complicated tunes with more chords and different combinations of chords. If you liked this, do so in the form of clicking the like button, and subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell, and play lots more jazz. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. Jazz is awesome.